Now, COP29 is underway in Azerbaijan, a country located on the border between Europe and Asia. The annual UN Climate Change Summit, which is being held in the country's capital Baku, is the successor to COP28, which was held in Dubai last year. As Jayant Das reports, the stakes are even higher this year.
First and foremost on the agenda of COP29 is the setting up of a global carbon market to help countries reduce carbon emissions. A landmark was reached in this regard on day one of the summit, the adoption of new operational standards for a mechanism under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement.
I now invite the CMA to adopt the draft decision contained in document PA/CMA/2024/L.1. Thank you.
Article 6 facilitates international collaboration to lower carbon emissions. It offers two pathways for countries and companies to trade carbon offsets. Option 1 allows two countries to sign a bilateral carbon trade agreement on their own terms. Option 2 allows countries and companies to pay for carbon-reducing projects backed by a UN-managed system and earn credits to offset emissions. Another crucial agenda at COP29 is that of redefining a new collective quantified goal for climate finance. It is long overdue and needs a significant overhaul to meet current realistic needs. It was essentially drawn up to introduce changes in climate action funding for developing countries after 2025. The gap between what is required and what is being funded is huge. The Baku summit will see countries seek to establish a new annual climate financing target to replace the $100 billion pledge set in 2009, which expires at the end of the year, and which many say is far less than what is required. The current requirement, estimated by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, stands at much higher than the proposed $1 trillion mark.
COP29 must tear down the walls of climate finance. Developing countries must not leave Baku empty-handed. A deal is a must, and I'm confident it will be reached. We need a new finance goal that meets the moment.
The 2023 Dubai summit saw an agreement on operationalization of a loss and damage fund. It was a historic move that promised to address the needs of countries most affected by climate change, but it has yet to take off. So COP29 needs to focus on operationalizing the fund in order to deliver timely support to nations on the front lines of climate disasters. COP29 also has an obligation to look at nature-based solutions. Nature-positive initiatives such as reforestation, wetland restoration, and coastal protection can offer a powerful means of mitigating the impact of climate change while preserving an ecosystem. So where does India stand in its journey of climate action? How has India emerged as an advocate for the Global South when it comes to climate action and climate justice? India has given voice to concerns of the Global South at global platforms such as the UN and G20. It has hosted many editions of its Voice of the Global South Summit. India submitted its first nationally determined contribution in the year 2015, which was aimed at reducing the emission intensity of its GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030. From the 2005 level, and achieving a 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy resources by 2030. Both goals have been achieved in 2023, much ahead of the deadline. As on 31st October 2023, the cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy resources stood at 43.81%. of the total cumulative electric power installed capacity, and the emission intensity of its GDP has been reduced by 33% between 2005 and 2019. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched a mission lifestyle for environment in 2022. It promotes sustainable and environment-friendly practices to make a society a part of climate action. It paved the way for the adoption of a UN resolution on sustainable lifestyles in 2024. India's National Green Hydrogen Mission is another such initiative, which aims to produce 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen by 2030. A national solar rooftop policy and support for zero-emission vehicles are two similar initiatives. India also pushed for international collaboration by way of International Solar Alliance and its G20 presidency to promote collective climate action. COP28 was the highest attended COP meeting in history, with around 85,000 participants, including more than 150 heads of state or government. COP28 also saw some key outcomes, with the most important being the conclusion of the first global stocktake of efforts made to address climate change under the Paris Agreement. The global stocktake provided benchmarks and outlined guidance for countries to consider in the next round of climate action plans that are due in 2025. Besides an agreement on the Loss and Damage Fund, COP28 also decided on targets for a global goal on adaptation, which will have the purpose to assess global efforts towards resilience against climate change. COP28 also called on world governments to transition away from fossil fuels and to hold the increase in global average temperature to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. World Meteorological Organization Secretary General believes that there is still some hope for the set target.
For me, there is still hope for 1.5, and we should keep along those lines, because if we move our mark into 2, the impacts will be huge. We are already below 1.5, and you can see the impacts. They are very strong.
So there are a lot of expectations from COP29, but the question is, will developed nations come to the help of developing nations? Jayan Das's report for DD India.